I've got some goofy Australian car questions I want to throw at you on the fly.
Hang on, I think in one of the emails, David, that you like Oswheels. I obviously being Australian, I love my Oswheels, so definitely want to cover off on some Oswheels and have a chat about that. You got the Chase as well, the Raw Chase.
Got the Raw Chase, man. I don't even know how much it's worth. Like, I know I'm never getting rid of it, but yeah.
There are people that will fly over from Australia and kill you and take that, David.
Just for fun.
David,
you're
amazing. I look forward to that.
Your focus. There you go.
Yeah, you gotta retrain it.
Yeah. Get a new camera. What is that? Do you get that on Temu?
Shein. What is going on?
Just give it a second. It'll.
Blink twice.
All right, so
I am 2 days away from getting my voice back, so this will sound great in 2 days when we're not recording. We will just
try to.
Chuck, do you want to record the intro maybe later and just hit the questions?
Yeah, that might be a good. That's a good idea. Let's do that because I do not have a "Hey there, folks," Chuck here in me.
All right. All right, so we're going on the fly tonight, Ben. All right. So we'll just kind of.
I'll count us in. So, all right. Oh boy, that sounds bad. All right. In 3, 2.
You're watching Diecast Breakdown with Chuck Ellis, David Johns, and Mark McHotwheel. So sit back, strap in, and hang on. The breakdown starts now.
Well, hey there, folks. Chuck here, and welcome to Diecast Breakdown. We're so glad you're here with us today. This is an interview that we did with Boy Racer Ben. You might have heard of him. And we're going to get right to that. But before we do, I want to thank our executive producer level patrons that make the show go. That would be First and 64th Customs, Dane Self, DrivenDreams.org, Elevation Diecast Racing, Jason J. Goldenberg, Lewis Big Lou Tanahara, Mad Visions, Reviews Through Another Lens, TWYCE Diecast, and Video Geek Productions. You can see all the other patrons that have joined their ranks, including our all-new patrons, Larry's Model Shop, The Scuffed Nerd, and Paul Schwach. I hope I'm saying that right. The Diecast Guy. Those are all new production assistant level patrons. If you want to know more about the levels of support you can give or how you can help keep the show going, you can visit diecastbreakdown.com, where you can find links to our Patreon, our merch store, our social media, and a whole bunch of other cool stuff, including drivendreams.org, the charity that Mark, my co-host, runs, where he's raising 25,000 cars for kids in need all over the world. It's a really cool cause, and you should be a part of it. So check it out, drivendreams.org. Oh, and before we get to the interview, make sure that you like, subscribe, and if you like this episode, share it with your friends. It really helps a lot. And also, while you're down there, there's the join button as well. If you don't want to do Patreon, you can always join and help us out through YouTube. All right, on with the show. All right, well, we are here with Boy Racer Ben. You might have heard of him. He's been pretty popular around those little social media things that all the kids are talking about these days. We know him as Ben, but you know him as the Boy Racer, the Boy Wonder, the man that sets his cars on fire and drives them across his track that's also on fire. It's wild stuff. But Ben, thank you so much for being on the show with us today.
No worries. Thanks for having us.
Sure. So for those who have been living under a rock, tell us what Boy Racer Ben is, where all that came from.
Okay, Boy Racer Ben. It's a tough one. It started probably not too long ago, to tell you the truth. It was probably coming almost 3 years ago, 2.5, 3 years ago. So essentially, I started my whole social media video journey soon after my son was born, probably when my son was about 1.5 years old. So started out by just buying him a few Hot Wheels cars. To tell you the truth, Hot Wheels cars, diecast cars, completely off the radar. being in my early 30s, not having probably a Matchbox car since I was probably about 7 years old. Not on the radar. Never thought it would be on the radar, but after buying some, I think it was a Fast and Furious 5 pack, just a mainline 5 pack for my son, and setting up a track for him in the garage, and sort of seeing the enjoyment that he got out of watching the cars race along the track. That's essentially where it started. So after my son was born as well, I had a few weekend actual real hobby cars as well. And after he was born, I wasn't really driving them around. They were just sitting in the garage. Started selling those off. So almost didn't have a hobby. And my son, he was sort of enjoying. We were watching a few YouTube videos together, watching cars, sort of the 3D bot maker, the races, and all that sort of thing. And it just all sort of came from there. Decided sort of that it looked like a bit of a fun something fun to do, a bit of a hobby I think I'd enjoy, and started posting a few videos on TikTok. Very poor quality videos as it
Yes, we
starts
do.
out. I think everyone's the same. It's part of the journey, isn't it? Um, and started sort of expanding my content just from races at the start to early on. I did a few sort of backyard rally tracks. So I sort of built a bit of a track through the garden, and that got quite a bit of momentum. And then took it even further, started doing my Fast and the Furious scene recreations, I suppose. And I think it was probably from there on TikTok, that's where it all started to blow up, from my Fast and the Furious scene recreations, in particular the Dodge Charger Supra video. That probably is one of my most viewed videos that I've ever made, and I've done that scene a few times now. Um, and then from there, sort of even started to dabble in, I think, a few customs and that sort of thing earlier on, which I don't do as much these days. But I think the thing that got me quite a bit of momentum was probably I did quite a bit of a variety of everything. So a few customs, scene recreations, racing, backyard rallies, and the momentum sort of grew quite quickly. Definitely my diecast racing, that's sort of, I think, the main point to my videos, especially earlier on, that got me the most momentum. But essentially that's where it all started, and then sort of moved to Instagram, and then went on to YouTube eventually as well. Probably wasted a good, probably 6 months to a year at the start, not posting on any other platform rather than TikTok. And in the end, it sort of turns out that I actually enjoy Instagram as a platform probably the most, and then YouTube as well. So definitely, I'm looking to sort of move into a little bit more longer content as time goes on. I've always been sort of a short form creator, but definitely looking to move into a little bit more YouTube, longer content as time moves on. But that's sort of, a bit of a recap on sort of my journey and how I got into it, I suppose.
Now, did you do content creation before this, or was this your first time really kind of diving in there?
Not at all. Yeah, just I mean, I suppose sort of my work career. When I left school, I had a gap year and I was in the military. So, um, you know, and then I've moved into a few other industries, but I work in mining at the moment. So sort of tech and video editing, was not something I've ever really dabbled in too much at all. And I'm definitely not a tech guy. I definitely have no idea, how to work my way around a computer more than the average Joe. So it's all sort of just been a learning process. And in all honesty, it's not that hard editing. It's all, up to the app, isn't it? And how good your app is, and how easy it is to use and what you choose to use. So, but yeah, not at all. Videos and editing and tech, it's never really been my thing. So, sort of just shows that anyone can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's encouraging for people that are on the fence about it. Like I can't do that because I think we've all been there. Some of us, we all have different backgrounds, and I didn't have any in that kind of stuff. But it's like you said, it's not that hard. It's just getting in there and putting things together, adding some music, snipping it, and it's kind of fun to do. But it takes at least 100 bad videos to make a good video. Generally, it seems to be the case.
So Ben, you got some strong follower counts on your platforms. So I'm curious if someone like Mark is talking about would like to get started making videos. Can you just briefly describe maybe the type of audience that you found in TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, how they differentiate across those platforms, and maybe if someone is going for a specific target audience where they might, start out?
All three platforms I've found they're very different, but in the same sense, when it comes to sort of gaining followers and, algorithms, they're all the same. It's, when it comes to making videos and posting, it's definitely all about consistency. It's a whole nother ball game, I think, when you're making videos and trying to work the algorithms. It's posting every day. It's right down to replying to every comment, liking every comment, being super interactive, and also, trying to be more creative every time you make a video and always trying to improve your videos. But as far as audiences on the platform, I think everyone knows TikTok for being sort of, I suppose, a younger sort of audience. More, I think you are supposed to be over 18 to be on TikTok, but we all know that probably 50% of the TikTok audience is probably under
15,
under 18. So it's quite a young audience on TikTok. Instagram's the same as well in a real sense, but TikTok's very in your face. It's boom, boom, boom. No attention spans these days. That's just the way that we've moved with social media and interactive things. It's just in your face. Boom, next video. Quick. You want to get a hook on your video straight away, so you want to make it interesting so people are seeing it straight from the very start. Because if you start off slow, then everyone's just flicking straight past your video.
So fire and explosions in every video is a must.
Absolutely, and try and put a little sneak peek at the start, of what's going to happen. But I started on TikTok and then moved to Instagram, where I find Instagram's probably a little bit better as a community, easier to chat to people, and I almost see it more of a professional platform. Sort of, there's more sort of. That's where I suppose, especially in the diecast, that's, where the actual diecast companies tend to hang out a little bit more as well. And then YouTube, I suppose YouTube's just a whole different ball game, isn't it? With the long content, you've still got your short content, which I find the short content on YouTube is the best for gaining followers. So if you're looking for followers, you definitely want to be smashing out the short content on YouTube, whereas then the monetization side of things, you definitely want to be pumping out the long videos on YouTube for that. So, YouTube's just a whole different ball game. But I think YouTube sort of still has that sort of professional credibility about it as well.
We'll be back with more Diecast Breakdown after this word from our sponsors. Legendary Hollywood concept artist and designer Fireball Tim Lawrence has created 3 exclusive pieces of automotive art based on the 3 hosts of Diecast Breakdown. Get these and other brilliant designs printed on mugs and more at fireballtimgarage.art today.
Cast Heads magazine is a digital publication dedicated to enhancing the lives of collectors all across the world by providing information on new models, reviews on brands and diecast accessories like figures and dioramas, throwing light on customizers, photographers and people who contribute to making the diecast world vibrant. Subscribe to Cast Heads for free and look for collaborations with Diecast Media Network at castheadsmagazine.com.
And now back to Diecast Breakdown.
So,
I'm curious, Ben, at what point did you really kind of think, oh, this is taking off? Because you've got this video, and I love this video. It's like your past self and your future self, and your future self writes, "Don't give up" on a DeLorean and sends it back in time to your past self. So, how autobiographical is that? And at what point did you think, oh, this is really going to take off?
that's another one I did in the early days, especially on TikTok. I was doing a few little skits as well, which I quite enjoyed. I probably should look at getting back into that. They're the ones that are sort of, sort of takes creativity to the next level, and it's hard to sort of, bit harder to sort of plan those ones and think those ones out. But it was quite early on in TikTok. I think I was only probably posting for it had only been maybe a month, maybe 2 months, and I started just, like I said, doing a little bit of a variation in my content. And I think I posted in one weekend, I posted a backyard rally video with a car driving through the backyard. And I think that had something like, I think within a week I had over 30 million views. And this is sort of quite early on when I think I still only had about 10,000 followers on TikTok, and then I think that pumps me right up to around 50,000 followers. And then I think maybe 2 weekends, just like that, it almost happened overnight. And then I think 2 weekends later, again, the same. I did another backyard rally, gave it a bit of a break, did another backyard rally because it was quite a bit of work setting those up. It would literally take me, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours just to film it all and get the car to go over jumps and land properly and that sort of thing. So I did another one of those on the weekend. I posted that again, lots of momentum. And then the next night, I think that's when I did my first Fast and the Furious Dodge Charger Supra recreation. And then that one blew up even more. And I think overnight I had, a few million views on that video. And I think sort of within the next week, I think I was close to 200,000 followers almost within a week. So this is all on TikTok, yeah.
Cheers.
So yeah, a lot of early momentum on TikTok, and then it was quite organic, sort of the transfer to Instagram as well. I think I just started posting daily. All my old videos, I had quite a lot of old videos just banked up, so I started posting my old videos, and then same thing. Instagram took a little bit longer to get a bit of traction, but it was just posting every day. And I think it sort of showed in my content as well. People wanted to watch it, and I think that's half the battle. If you can make something that people are interested in watching, and then you add consistency, you're sort of going to head in a winning direction regardless.
But the lesson is you made what you wanted, what you were feeling, and you put your heart and soul into it and did it as well as you could. And people just naturally gravitate toward that. So, I mean, that's the lesson right there. Don't try and copy stuff that's already out there. Do what it's kind of like an author. Write about what you know.
Yeah, 100%. And I think early on, I think I did get a few comments. Not a lot. It's actually been surprising doing Diecast, the amount of positive comments that you get. You don't get too many people sort of hating on you, which I actually was surprised by. I expected to get a lot more. I actually start posting on Facebook now as well. So it's when you post to Instagram, you can also set it up to post to Facebook. So I actually find Facebook is the worst platform of all of them for negativity.
Of course, right?
I agree.
We agree.
So which is fine because I post to Instagram, and I honestly I don't really look at Facebook at all. But I think I got a few comments early on when I was doing my racing videos. People, not too many. Most of it was positivity, but a few comments. This is 3D bot maker. You're copying 3D bot maker. And I suppose in a way, I mean, I'm doing the same thing. I'm racing, Diecast, but is that really copying? 3D bot maker was definitely the pioneer of diecast racing, but I think my content's probably completely different. I mean, one, it's more sort of short form content, which is completely different. Different sort of racing as well. Mine's always been based around sort of, I suppose, illegal street racing as well. And I think one thing that I've done differently in my diecast racing is I started out, I think it was when I introduced the sort of my open end finish racetrack. So the cars race down the track and then they race into the open straight. And, there's quite a bit of carnage that happens. Which again, there are a lot of people that, I get a lot of negative comments at times, that car shouldn't have won, because it's hit a ramp and it's done a flip and then the other car's driven past. But my content was never originally
no rules.
designed.
Listen, there's no
Yeah,
rules.
That's
it's
right.
illegal
Yeah.
street racing. I mean, and I
Yeah.
sort of I play off those comments as well. And, it's all about having fun, isn't it? And,
Yeah.
one thing I do when I'm making my videos is I try and keep in mind that my videos I'm trying to represent what, the, the 5, 6, 7-year-old is thinking as they're driving their cars around, sort of like trying to recreate
Mm-hmm.
the imagination and trying to bring it to life, I suppose. So it's
Yeah.
never really been about my diecast racing, which car is fastest. It's been just about a bit of fun.
Sure.
And people do get right into the races as well, and
Mm-hmm.
get annoyed when one car crashes. But at the end of the day, I think it adds to the charm of the videos. So
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree. I think, it's funny you brought up 3D Bot Maker, because I was going to say you're almost like the the top gear to watching an F1 circuit race. Like an F1 circuit race is going to be very technical, and then you're going to have all the high tech stuff, and you're over here doing stuff that's very creative, and it's got like ramps and flips and unexpected stuff, and
streets.
it's more about the spectacle and the joy of the racing, rather than about whether somebody has something that is technically the fastest. And I think that's a very entertaining way to do that. And I love the Thomas the Train engine chugging through, and the just all the little obstacles, and the trees, and the ramps, and the market stands, and all that stuff. And it's great. So I think anybody who says, oh well, 3D Bot Maker did it first, it's like, no, 3D Bot Maker just added color commentary to Pinewood Derby racing, and did it really, really well. He just elevated something that already existed. So it's not really fair to say somebody who's also doing downhill racing is also imitating that. And there's dozens of channels that do that, and I think there are a lot of really great ones. There's a lot of Australian based ones that are really cool. But is that Chaos Canyon? Are they Australian? I can't remember.
New Zealand, yeah.
New Zealand.
Sorry.
Sorry. Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned mining, because one of our strongest supporters, Christian Stanaland, is a customizer from New Zealand who worked in the mining industry in Australia, and is now in New Zealand.
Okay, I wouldn't be surprised, because I live in Perth, sort of Western Australia. It's a very sort of mining heavy sort of city, I suppose. So we get a lot of New Zealanders actually come to Perth and work out here. It's very common, Sort of have an agreement. You can move between Australia and New Zealand and work.
Is it a lot of mining for Vegemite there, or is that something that's not?
No, they grow out of sandwiches, trees, just like the song.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Ben, you are a proud Aussie car fan and diecast collector. Just remind people that don't know briefly, how crazy are Aussies over cars and customizing? And then I want you to talk a little bit about some of the diecast brands that are doing Aussie cars that you're pretty excited about.
Yep, absolutely. I suppose it's probably a good point just to say that I did start with my diecast racing and sort of scene recreations and in Hot Wheels, but it's probably a good point, and something we can get into later as well, is just my transition from being a diecast racer now to a collector, probably to the point now that I actually almost enjoy collecting diecast more than I enjoy racing diecast.
Welcome to the dark side.
So I think, journey wise, everyone starts with Hot Wheels, and I was heavy Hot Wheels when I started. It was even to the point that I was like, Hot Wheels, why would I collect anything else? I don't want anything else. I'm just going to collect Hot Wheels. And then, slowly, I can't remember what it was I bought, and now it's kind of like I don't really want Hot Wheels anymore. I want the high-end diecast pieces. And that as well has transferred into, I suppose, Australian diecast as well. So we've got the brand that you guys know of and not everyone knows of unless you're in Australia and a diecast collector, but Oswheels. And they have been around for just over a year now, and they've come quite a long way, and that's probably been one of my passions. We've got one there, the That's a raw chase. But yeah, it's one of those ones. Where do you even start with Oswheels? They've, like I said, been around for a year, and the company's just grown so much um,
Yeah.
in the 1 year. And the craze behind Oswheels in Australia has it's a tough one. I wouldn't say that it's overtaken Hot Wheels, but it's probably on par with Hot Wheels. So Oswheels has become that big in Australia that it's probably on par with Hot Wheels. I don't know if, as in figures, how many are selling of each, but sort of,
Right.
people scalping them, just the absolute craze behind them, the FOMO behind it. One thing to note with Oswheels is the reselling price with those chasers, much bigger than Hot Wheels.
Yeah.
Yeah, Oswheels has gone absolutely bonkers here in Australia.
Well, I mean, and
Yeah.
it's because, we had Jesse on, the creator, and they're doing like really historically important cars to Aussies. Like, I don't remember this specific one. It's a very famous driver. It's a very famous vehicle. But like, talk about the legacy of the car culture in Australia. It like to somebody in the States or Europe that doesn't know, it's really big.
Yeah, I mean, so the car culture in Australia. So I mean, we've got JDM, which is still JDM's huge everywhere, isn't it? So we've definitely got the JDM scene over here, but the Australian car culture, Australian cars in general, I'd probably say outweighs JDM over here. So the Australian population at the moment, I think we're close to around 30 million at the moment. We started making cars, Australian-made cars in the 60s, through the 70s, probably, through the 70s, right through to the 2000s. I don't know what the population was back in the 70s, but, we were making sort of millions of our own cars,
Yeah.
and that's what everyone was driving back then.
Here, look at this old Holden. I don't mean to cut you off, but yeah, it's not a new thing. It is. It's been decades.
It has been, yeah, absolutely, and it's only been just recently, sort of 2014, I think, it's when Holden was shut down, and Ford was shut down as well. So there's no more Australian cars anymore, and I think that's just elevated the car culture and trying to, keep it alive here in Australia, because when we no longer have those cars anymore. Um, so, but yeah, as far as sort of the cars that we created, um, super iconic cars, like we sort of have our own muscle car scene. V8s, huge on the V8s. Even our own racing history, like you said, that we have quite a prestigious sort of racing history where it was always Ford versus Holden, and one of the sort of Australia's greatest rivalry in racing. And I think racing's definitely died off since the death of Australian Fords and Holdens, because that rivalry is no longer there. But yeah, it's sort of, I mean, it's one of those ones. Where do you even start with it? It's just
Sure.
it's
Yeah.
it's massive. Even myself, I used to own a couple of Holdens as well. I've just recently, I sold them all when my son was born. I've just bought another one, so I'm sort of back into the scene again at the moment. Um, so, but yeah, Oswheels themselves are just, yeah, they're sort of bringing it back to life. And I'd almost say that even if you're not a diecast collector, it's bringing more people sort of into collecting the Oswheels, just because it's cars that bring back memories and that sort of thing, cars that they used to drive, cars that they might own. They want to get the 164 version of it. So I think that's obviously a reason why Oswheels has been so successful, is just the memories that it brings when you pick
Do you,
up your Oswheels car.
do you ever
You've
own
actually
one,
got
one of these?
XY GT Falcon. No, those
Yeah.
things go for, if you
Millions.
want an yeah, it depends what the model is, but if you want an original one, yeah, anywhere from a couple of $100,000 to, for the rare ones, yeah, up to probably $1 million. Yeah. So
Wow. Mark?
That's a lot of money.
Don't touch that dial. Diecast Breakdown will be right back after these messages. Diecast Breakdown is produced in partnership with TWYCE Diecast and Driven Dreams Org on YouTube. Check out their channels in the video description and subscribe for more epic diecast content.
Hey, this is Larry Wood.
This is Derek from Honest Diecast.
Hey, this is Chad Reed from Round 2.
This is Mike from Gasland.
The SRT Joe Vita Show.
This is Champion DJ K.
This is Mad Vision here.
This is Diecast Dude.
And you're watching Diecast Breakdown.
And now, the thrilling conclusion of this week's episode of Diecast Breakdown.
So is it, Ben, is it Nissan or Nissan? And is it GTR or GDR? For anyone wondering.
It's definitely a GTR.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely not a Nissan. It's a Nissan, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So,
so tell us about a little bit, because I'm the JDM guy of the group here. You know, these guys, they appreciate them, but not nearly as much as I do. So I've noticed that you like the 100 or the 180 SX a lot, and of course Skylines and stuff like that. Tell us a little bit about your passion for the JDM stuff, and maybe, I don't know, rotaries. I don't know if you're into. I know Australians in general are big into rotaries and burnouts and horsepower and drag racing and all drifting and all that fun stuff. So
yeah, I mean, when it comes to the burnouts, the Australian sort of scene. Burnouts are huge in Australia, so Oswell, that's something Oswells have sort of gone into, and that's what they're recreating a few of the latest models, which I don't think you had one of those there, David, did you, with a big blower out of the hood?
No. I don't think anybody does burnouts like Australia. I mean, they can try, but they don't have like 16 stacked blowers on their holding doing
it's down burnouts. On my shelf. It's down on my shelf in my office. I didn't bring it up.
I mean, and that's what Oswells is recreating at the moment there. They've actually recreated a couple of, not so much this one. This one wasn't actually designed as a burnout car. This is more of a show car. I think it'll probably start doing burnouts, I'd say, but this is actually a recreation of a real Australian car.
Is that a Monaro?
This is actually called a Holden Tirana.
Tirana.
And that's the thing. There's so many. We made so many different cars, and that's a good thing about Oswells. It's just, it's going to take them years to recreate all of the cars, all the Australian Fords and Holdens that have been made over the years. There's so many to do, and that's one comment that you keep seeing on all their social media pages is like, when are you going to make this car? When are you going to make this car? Like, when are you going to? People complaining about it, but you don't realize how many Australian cars there are. It's going to take they will make them all, but it's going to take them years to get to it all. So,
there's probably a pretty high demand that they're having to keep up with. They're not Hot Wheels, they're not Mattel, so they're not able to pump out as much stuff. Of course.
But myself, I've always been sort of on the Holden side of things, as opposed, because we have Holden, which is sort of comes under the GM General Motors banner, sort of a company under them, and then we had Australian Fords as well. I've always been on the Holden side, but I have always had the passion for JDMs as well. I've only ever owned one JDM before, and it's all been Holdens a part of that. But there is probably one other thing to note. The car that I've got at the moment is a Holden Commodore. So I actually got the best of both worlds with this one. So this is one that Oswells has created. This is it's called a VL Holden Commodore. And one thing that people won't know, and I don't think you guys would know about it, but this is a 1987 Holden, and this is the best of both worlds. So it's a GM Holden, but it's actually got the Nissan RB30 motor, and it came standard from factory with the Nissan RB30. So this takes it down in between JDM and Australian, and massive scene with these cars as well. They came stock with turbos as well, and it's just one that, people put turbos on. And
heavily sought after engine. A lot of people, you get the RB20s, 25s, 26, and then the RB30s are the bigger bore and everything, so everybody wants those, or they came in some trucks and stuff like that, or maybe the patrollers or something like that.
So that's one that I haven't put it on my socials or anything, but I've actually just recently bought myself like the 1-to-1 version of that car, non-turbo, not turbocharged, so just the naturally aspired RB30 in it.
Yeah,
so
time to do a turbo and some burnouts.
But
You know, for those that don't know these cars, man, it really is sad that we're not going to see new Holdens and new Aussie Fords in the future, because they were some of the coolest cars ever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool,
and I suppose one of the iconic things about Australian cars, as well as the pickups or utes. I mean, we call them utes over here, but yeah,
Sure.
the sports utes that we have, and that's one that Oswheels is actually bringing out. They're bringing out a just about to release in the next series that comes out as one of the sort of high end sports utes. Which is actually a bit of a shame that we never imported those to the US, because I reckon they would have absolutely gone off over there if you guys would drive.
Yeah,
I know somebody who has a, I think it's a 65 Valiant Ute, and I have a 64 Valiant US version that I've had since I was 15. There was a version of that car over in Australia. It had a different back end to it, and they were called Chrysler Valiants instead of Plymouth Valiants.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's a guy over here that imported a Valiant Ute, and it's the same color as mine, which is a bright blue. It's really cool. And I actually got to park next to an Australian Valiant, I want to say TC, something like that. It had the 245 inline slant six. They have a straight six down there, and we had the slant six here in the US. And yours was actually really good. Ours was indestructible, but very slow. And it was very cool. It was a gentleman named Grant Musker that had he had immigrated here from Australia and brought his Valiant with him when he moved over. And it was very cool to park a US Valiant next to an Australian one. They're the also ran of Australian car companies. Like, everybody's holding their Ford, and then Chrysler's over here like, we are also here. And, yeah. And nobody cares about them.
Yeah, even in Australia, with the Chryslers, they didn't really go off like the Holdens and the Fords.
Well, what's funny is now all the people that are souping up their Valiants and Slant Sixes over here, we get all our performance parts from Australia, because that's where people are developing the parts for it. Like, there's actual interest in developing the six cylinders, because everybody over here does V8s. So if you want something done with a six cylinder, you're getting it from Australia. In fact, the trim rings on the headlights of my car are from Australia, because there's the only people that make the replacement headlight trim rings for my car are in Australia, because they were the same in Australia as they were here.
Yeah, so, we even make there's even a Ford engine. I don't know if you've heard of it, the Barra, but it's a straight six turbocharge straight six, and there's people have been importing them from Australia and putting them in Mustangs over there. Super awesome engines made here.
So Ben, you mentioned a super high performance ute, and I want you to hold that thought. I prepared a couple pictures of some really awesome Aussie stuff. I want to see if you can guess by the picture, and then I want you to kind of educate a little bit on maybe the vehicle that we're holding up. So, do you know this high performance ute? And this is my hardest one. I had to dig around a little for it. Does that look familiar to you?
Yeah, so that's actually the model that Oswheels is going to create in 164. So that's the VF HSV Maloo.
That's right. You nailed it.
Probably a GTSR, I'd say, by the look of it.
So I am so glad that you said Oswheels is going to do this vehicle. This, guys, Chuck, Mark, this is 6.2 liters, 0 to 64.4. I mean, this is absolutely insane.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I believe that might be the LSA, supercharged LSA or LSX.
LSA,
I think.
What year is that guy?
LSA V8. I don't know when this would have been.
You know, it would have been 2000, and hard to say, maybe 15, 16.
Oh.
All right. Well, you nailed it. It's the Maloo. And you know what I like? And I don't know how Aussies feel about this. So many cars pay homage with Aboriginal names. You know, is like, what's the deal there? Is that just respect, or why is that?
Yeah, I think it's I mean, obviously, Australia was colonized in 18 whenever, only a few hundred years ago. So, I mean, Aboriginal history, goes back, hundreds of thousands of years. So I think it's only, the right thing to do, isn't it? To sort of pay that
absolutely.
respect to, the people that have been here for so much longer than us. So not just cars, just everything in general. It might be street names, it might be schools, buildings will be named, with Aboriginal names. So, I mean,
all right.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole nother, non-diecast
we'll do that
related
episode too.
sort of thing. Yeah,
yeah. That's kind of like how Jeep has their Comanches and their Cherokees and their Chiefs.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
All right, number 2, guys. We've talked about it. We've even looked at one already. Ben, tell us exactly what this car is, and maybe this is one of the bucket list ones for a true Aussie car fan, right?
It is. I mean, if you're a Ford guy, you'd probably have to just slide it slightly across so I can see the bonnet. Yeah, that way. Yeah, that's So we did talk about. Yeah, you can always tell by the bonnet. They call it a shaker. It sits out of the bonnet, and as the engine's going, it shakes. So that's why they call it a shaker, the air intake. But yeah, that's the XY GT Falcon.
And is that this one that we looked at earlier?
That is that one, and that's actually the first diecast car that Oswheels released. That they call it the FSD range, which is probably a pretty Australian thing to do. It's called the FSD. Stands for fully sick detail.
Nice.
So
that sounds about right.
And that's the first one that Oswheels actually created with an interior. So early on, all the Oswheels, including this VL Commodore, they all have blacked out windows. Which I don't mind the blacked out windows. Still love them and collect them. But I think, diecast people in general, I think people prefer an interior. So they've essentially just given the people what they want and starting to bring out, their fully sick detail range, which includes the full interior, which you pay a little bit more for. But I mean, myself, I prefer the interior, and I'm happy to pay that little bit more for the interior as well.
Sure. Now you did a really cool advent calendar video with your son. So tell us a little bit about that, because that kind of ties into this.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was one thing that Oswheels created for their sort of Christmas, sort of leading up to Christmas. They created an advent calendar, and it was pretty much a car a day. So you opened a car a day. And I ended up getting one for my son as well, so we could sort of open it up day to day, which was quite fun. He's only 4 years old, so he absolutely loved every day. That was sort of part of our morning ritual: get up and open our cars up, and that was good fun. And it was also the start of another creation of Oswheels. So they're bringing out another range, which is sort of more based. Sort of lines up as you've got your premium range and your mainline range, so it sort of lines up as a mainline range. And again, another Aussie name, they're calling them, the name for it is the Red Bellies, which is named after the red belly black snake, a poisonous snake here in Australia. And they're all going to have sort of red bellies underneath, so the base is going to be red, and that's something that they're just releasing at the moment, actually in blind boxes, so you won't actually know what the car is until you open it. But sort of for collectors are still going to buy them, but I think they're more aimed towards the kids, something for the kids to play with and smash around as well. So,
well, we've I had one other one, but you've already hit it. It was the Commodore with the crazy engine in it. So no sense in asking you to name that one. I have one last one, Ben, that was a bonus, and I'm gonna offer $1 million to Chuck or Mark if they can identify this beauty right here. This is from one of my favorite TV shows, Kath and Kim, out of Australia.
It's one of your favorite TV shows, David?
It is.
Well, it wasn't on Bluey, so I haven't seen it before.
I don't think you could cash that check anyways,
any ideas,
David, so it doesn't
Ben,
really matter.
what this is?
Is it a Skoda?
It's definitely
Well,
not a car that's it's definitely not a car that sort of goes down in history as like an Australian
It's just
classic, that's for sure. I
it's
can't say what the European variant is that because it came out in Europe. It was
right.
probably like a Renault or something. I don't know what it is.
I think
Maybe a
it
Renault,
might maybe an Opal.
an
ugh,
Opal.
it's
Yep.
But
gross,
it
David. Don't.
looks like the Holden Barina.
Nailed it. Oh my gosh. Holden Barina Swing from Kath and Kim. That's what they drove around in the show in. Need to go
So
check that
yeah,
show out. Hilarious.
I don't want to anymore.
Well,
Yeah.
then
Not,
you'll just
not at
miss
all.
out. You'll just miss out then. Fine.
Did they have
Whatever.
any cool cars in the show, David?
No, there
Just
were
that
none,
one.
actually.
You watch
Okay,
a show
that's
without cars in it or cool
Yeah.
cars?
Yeah,
Okay.
I guess I'm in trouble now.
Yeah. So, Ben, we've talked about jumping. You've kind of moved around platforms a lot, and I knew you from a year plus ago when you were posting more long form stuff on YouTube, and then you but that wasn't where you started. Obviously, you kind of moved around a lot. So, where do you kind of see the future of Boy Racer Ben going? Like, where do you see it? Spending the most time. Where's going to be the natural home for it?
I mean, I do like Instagram. I like the community around Instagram, the friends, the connections I've made on Instagram probably the most. Like I said, YouTube's a hard one because you can't, it doesn't have that direct sort of message app and that sort of thing. Like harder
no.
to, you put a comment on someone's video and then
They may never
I
see
never,
it.
they never
Yeah.
see it. You don't really get the notification. There's no sort of, it's hard to go in and pull up a list of all the comments and that sort of thing. It's hard to get that back and forwards banter on YouTube. So Instagram's definitely my sort of, you know, what I think Diecast is about, and it's sort of that sort of community and making friends and sort of sharing it. I suppose that's probably what I enjoy the most. Sorry, on Instagram. But I think YouTube definitely. I definitely want to look at going into a little bit more sort of long content on YouTube. And I think obviously YouTube's the only place and the best place to be doing long form content. So I definitely see myself sort of varying between a little bit of long form content on YouTube and still my short form content on YouTube, but also on Instagram, but sort of, basing those connections and, that banter on Instagram, I suppose. Yeah.
So what kind of long form content are you thinking? More like long form races?
In all honesty, I don't like doing the long form races. So as I was sort of alluding to before, just collecting in general has become a little bit more of a passion for me, sort of as time's gone on. So I'd like to do a little bit more long form just about collecting. And I mean, I suppose I can go into it because I'm not someone that, you know, you sort of at times you sort of get the idea that people like to keep their ideas to themselves and that sort of thing. And I've had people message me and say, I want to start diecast racing, and you know, I've even had people say, "Oh, I love what you do. I'd love to do exactly the same." And I sort of say to them, "Well, why don't you? Why don't you do it? It's a lot of fun. It's good community." And I've even had a few people say, "Oh, I don't want to copy you," and I said, "It's not copying. You just, it's about having fun." So that sort of thing has never bothered me. So probably one area I've sort of, I don't know if you guys agree because you guys probably spend a bit of time on YouTube. You are on YouTube, but one area that is missing on YouTube is almost like a long form. I mean, I don't want to do anything too long, but maybe around the sort of 10-minute mark. And it's just a bit of an idea. To tell you the truth, time is my biggest constraint at the moment, which is why short form works for me. Being a full-time worker, having, a young family still, and everything else that goes on in life. But I'd like to work towards filling what I think is a bit of a gap on YouTube at the moment, is essentially like a diecast, almost like a quick a news program, sort of a new a diecast entertainment news that sort of covers all the, latest releases that are coming out. Doesn't sort of specialize in just Hot Wheels or, just certain brands, that covers it all. There are a few people doing it, but I kind of feel like there's no one doing it really well at the moment. I don't know how you guys feel about that. maybe there is someone and I just haven't found them yet. Like it took me a while. I think I first found your channel when you actually did that Oswheels video with Jesse. It sort of popped up on my feed, and that's sort of when I discovered you. And that's the good thing about YouTube is you're always kind of discovering new people, and you're like, oh, cool, who's that? And I start following them and that sort of thing.
Well, I could tell you right off the bat, the stuff comes out so often in our community. Like it would be an enormous dedication of time to, number one, track it all down online, and then to put it out there and keep it current. I mean, you're
get
going
your hands
to be,
on it, a lot of times because people want to see it, so you gotta
and you're going to be, you're just going to be snatching. I think the idea definitely has value. I don't know what you think, Chuck, but if you're already crunched for time, it's not going to get any better if you try and do current diecast news.
Yeah, we try to keep up with it. It's tough for us to keep up with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that, I mean, it's like the same as anything. It'd be an evolution. Like, your first videos would be raw, and hopefully it would evolve into something. But that is one thing I've always been wary about is time. And, you put a video out and the amount of editing, it'd almost be one that I have to potentially look at outsourcing editing as well.
Sure. Yeah, I think, when I started exploring how we would handle news on this show, to go back to Top Gear, I liked how they handled the news, because those shows were always, the news was way late by the time they got out, because those shows took, months to produce.
Yeah, for sure.
So instead of focusing so much on being like the latest to break the news, it was more about, what's our take on it? Right. What's our commentary on this new thing? Do we like it? Do we not like it? Is this something that we think is going to be impactful or not? Because, there's the guys that do the news coverage, they're going to beat you to the punch every time. And they've got their groundwork laid, and they've got, the brands are leaking them stuff before it even comes out. And they've even leaked a few things to us before they've come out, which has been very kind of them. But, if you're going to do that route, you've got to really work on building your connections. If you want to be like the one that's known as the first to break something,
I don't think it was ever so much. The thought of doing it is more a bit of an entertainment show, just to a bit of awareness of like different models. Like I'd be looking at covering different models that people don't even know about. Like, there's sort of, that's one thing I sort of have been trying to do is track down diecast at the moment that is, and it's probably something I concentrate on collecting now. It's just more the unique pieces that I like, something that's a bit different. Like I posted a video, I think 2 days ago, with a diecast piece from X-Car Toys, and it was a cabbage truck. I don't know if you probably haven't seen it, but it's
I saw your cabbage truck video. That's a really cool looking truck, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're the kind of, that's sort of the way my collecting is headed, sort of trying to, I mean, obviously I love my Oswheels, and, there's a lot of JDM cars that I love that are out there. I'm always going to collect those, but then also trying to track down those unique pieces that, and to tell you the truth, a lot of them are unlicensed, unlicensed Chinese pieces, that are tucked deep in the depths of AliExpress that I find them, which, it doesn't bother me, because, a lot of them are super unique pieces that just look awesome. So, that's sort of a direction that I've sort of started collecting from now as well.
Yeah, you're in the black hole.
Which is probably controversial for a lot of people. I know a lot of collectors don't like unlicensed pieces, but
Yeah, we've talked about it before, but to each their own, and whoever, whatever you want to do, it's much cheaper that way if you like them than,
And
absolutely,
I was saying, Ben, you're in the black hole with me, because I live on AliExpress. I'm getting, X-Car Toys has 1960s Soviet Chinese military trucks,
limousines.
Where else are you getting that?
I've been eyeing off that. I think it must be like some sort of Chinese military not conscription, but sign up to the military truck piece that I've been looking at.
Yeah.
So yeah, the real sort of strange pieces like that are pretty cool. So
And that's how cool our hobby is right now. Is like if it has wheels and an engine, somebody is probably making it in diecast, and that's why it's an awesome time to be a collector.
Yeah, I think it's I think the biggest thing for all of us, like all four of us in our journey of Hot Wheels, is going through those different stages of, like you, Ben. I started making a lot of skit videos and funny videos and stuff like that, and then reviews, hunting videos of hunting, and then now I don't have time for that stuff anymore. I have a 1-year-old daughter, so and then I work full time and then some. So, but it's just that kind of journey where you can kind of go wherever you want. Then you get into racing, like then you have a kid and they like to run the cars down the track, and then you start doing it, and then all of a sudden you're making. I'm sure that probably had something to do with your videos. When you started making the racing videos, because you're buying that stuff to play with your kid and stuff like that. So there's just all these different journeys that we go down, and it's endless because there's so much out there. But yeah, it sounds like you're kind of going on your journey right now back into collecting more so than racing. So do you foresee yourself going, sticking with the racing aspect of it, or kind of just kind of leaving it behind a little bit?
No, I'm definitely going to stick with the racing. It might be sort of a case of me running a tournament and then the tournament ends, and then I'll sort of have a bit of a break, more collecting sort of things. Another long sort of, not too long, but doing a sort of a long format video on YouTube. I'm trying to sort of piece it together at the moment. I'm looking at doing sort of a little bit of a racing series, but it's just going to be sort of one street race. It'll be sort of a shorter video, maybe 2-3 minutes. But I'm trying to create like a story around the race as well. The biggest issue I'm having at the moment is so I'm using the minifigures as characters, and I want to sort of, have a story behind it. Like each character has something going on. But the biggest issue I'm having at the moment is the voices for the characters. So,
just hit us up and we'll try to help with voices.
Yeah,
David can get pretty high with his voice if you need any female characters.
Wow,
that would be fun. We could be guest voices. When my voice comes back, of course. Oh,
because nothing like that's been done before. So I was sort of thinking if I can build sort of like a bit of a story. I do the race and then I build the story around the race. Bringing in references from like Initial D, like Fast and the Furious from other movies. Just trying to make it fun, but also trying to keep it short and sharp because, you don't want, you've got little minifigures that don't move, so you don't want to be wasting too much time on a story. But, putting a few little sort of dark humor pieces into it as well. But the biggest constraint I'm having at the moment, like I said, is trying to have different character voices. So I'm sort of looking at voice changes and all sorts of things and AI voices, but there's sort of nothing that's really
you got to do the Dom Toretto voice. Toretto!
Yeah.
Just pow in your face.
So that's something I'd like to bring to life. How soon it happens, I'm not sure, but I'd like to sort of have like maybe 2 episodes a week come out around this story and see how it goes. So we'll see see what happens.
Cool.
It could be. I think it's.
Maybe we could get Chad Reed or Chad Lindbergh to do some voice. So get a hold of Noel G.
Yeah, I think that's another reason, man. You got to come out to Vegas, man. They're all out there.
They're there. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, they're great guys too. I mean, all the people they're very easy to
talk to.
And we've got a relationship with Chad. So
yeah, so Ben, we touched on this a little bit. Are you doing this full time now, or do you still have a day job?
No. This is my hobby, and
okay.
I mean, it'd probably be nice to do it full time, but at the same time, it is a hobby, and it's probably something I haven't touched on. And I think that's why I've been able to stick with it and make videos continuously because it is fun and I enjoy doing it. And, there has been a time that I probably have burnt out a little bit trying to, put pressure on myself to put content out. And it's something I've sort of stepped away from now, kind of just sort of try and keep it as a hobby and something I enjoy. So no, it's just part time at the moment, in my spare time. Like I said, I'm working full time. Luckily, being in the mining industry, I work for a week, pretty hard for a week, no spare time, and then I have the next week off. So I pretty much do 2 weeks of work in 1 week and have a full week off. So that week off gives me time in between my son, going to kindergarten. When he's home, it's hard to get anything done. But yeah, it is tough trying to juggle work, family, and this at the same time, and just
There's
try
not
to.
enough hours in the day for sure.
Definitely.
Sure.
Just try to remind yourself that, no, even so, sleep is pretty important because I noticed, you start missing out on sleep and then you have no motivation to actually do it. So it's trying to find that balance and just making sure that it doesn't become a chore and it stays a hobby, which I think at the moment I'm doing really well with.
It sounds like you've got the sweet spot and probably just try to stick with it.
Yeah, trying to work on it. Yeah, you can always improve, but trying to work on it.
Yeah. I think that's a very popular misconception with a lot of people that are creating content on YouTube that, I ask because I'm genuinely curious how many people in this hobby have been able to make a living doing just content creation about tiny cars on social media. And right now, I think I've identified maybe 3 people who have been able to do it. And, it's like Jakarta Diecast Project, Peak Racing,
Peak Time
Racing. And he even he says that the channel itself is not enough. He does other content creation.
Yeah.
3D Bot Maker. I think 3D Bot Maker does it full time, but I'm pretty sure that nobody else is really doing it full time. And I think that's something important for people to keep in perspective, because I think there are a lot of people out there that have this idea that they're going to go out and become full-time Hot Wheels content creators. And it's like, probably not. It's fun.
Well, and is it going to kill the hobby for you too? I mean,
exactly. Well, that's the thing is, like, even just we did a brand deal and just having to do the, keep up with that, and are we fulfilling our obligations? And it was just like, oh boy, now this is a job, and I love that we had that opportunity, and it was super cool, and we look forward to doing more of those. But it's like it's something that I like to bring up when we have creators on, because it's a little bit of reality check too. That it's like, Boy Racer Ben does very, very well. He's got one of the most popular channels out there on just about any platform you can think of, and he still has a day job. So we all have day jobs, so we have no illusions of this being a full-time career. We just do it because we love the hobby and we love talking to people, and people seem to be willing to show up on our show, so we keep doing it. So
yeah, I mean that is a good point. I think it is possible to do it full-time, but I think I mean, for myself, I'm at a disadvantage being in Australia. We can't get paid by Instagram, we can't get paid by TikTok, which is fine. But I think, and even Facebook as well, I can't get paid from Facebook at the moment either.
That's crazy.
But I think to take it full time would definitely risk taking the enjoyment out of it. I think to take it full time, I'd be pumping out a lot more content, a lot more long form content, and it would just take the fun out of it. And you take the fun out of it, are you going to enjoy your job?
Creativity,
Probably
potentially,
not. Yeah, absolutely. So, it's, I mean, like I said, I'd like to sort of, that little sort of racing idea, creating a story around it. It's definitely something I want to sort of explore a little bit more, see how it goes. But yeah, I don't think this is something I'll ever be doing full time unless I had other avenues, open a diecast shop or something like that, which I'm not interested in doing. So,
hey Ben, you talked about the warm reception that you had from the diecast community when you started building your channels and the positivity that you've experienced. I'm curious, is there something that you hope your fans get from your content? Is there like a mission statement in your head when you are building your brand? What do you want to give the community?
I touched on it before, and that's another comment that I used to get a lot as well. It's kind of like, definitely my content, especially the racing, and when I try and sort of recreate scenes, it's, bringing out the, I suppose, the inner child, I suppose. So, probably reminding people not to take life too seriously. I've been in the military, I've been on deployments, I've had quite, serious times in my life where I've had to be serious. But in all honesty, that's, if you can enjoy life, I don't think you should be taking life that seriously. You should be enjoying it, doing something that you're passionate about. But yeah, it's just trying to bring out that inner child and trying to recreate the imagination, I suppose. So, like I said before, something that, when you've got my 4-year-old son and he's pushing a car around a little, imagining that it's a road, sort of trying to recreate what he's thinking in his head in 1/64 scale, I suppose. And yeah, that's what it's all about for me.
Yeah, well said. Well said.
Yeah, I think you're doing a really good job at that, because just watching the Fast and Furious videos, and just kind of brings you back to the childhood days of just ramping cars off of things and your imagination. And I'm looking forward to my daughter being 1 year old. She's starting to play with cars. I'm giving her some bigger stuff, but I'm looking forward to getting the tracks set up and doing that. And I don't know what avenue that'll bring me down. Maybe I'll start doing some racing videos too. Who knows? But yeah, it's really fun watching the videos. It brings you back to, I think everybody wants a little bit of that nostalgia, the times when you were young and had the imagination, and it was kind of a carefree time, kind of
absolutely,
escape a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So Ben, you're best known for racing Hot Wheels, and you've touched on Oswheel some, but I understand you have quite a few other diecast brands in your collection. What are some of the ones that you like the best, and what are some of the ones that you've really been gravitating towards lately, as you're relatively new to the collecting and the hobby?
Yeah, so obviously you said Oswell's gravitated a lot towards that, but outside the Australian sort of car scene and Australian diecast, pretty much I do have my favorite brands, but when it comes down to it, if I like a piece of diecast, I buy it. So I wouldn't say there's any major brands. Probably brands that I have gravitated towards lately would be Pop Race. So obviously I've been to a few events lately. I was out in Japan with Lee and Drifter as well out there. So Pop Race has been one. I like what they're doing, the diecast that they're making, the tooling that they're using, and just everything. One for me, obviously, doing racing. It doesn't really apply when it comes to premiums, but I like something that's got a bit of weight to it, but something that also rolls as well. But when it comes down to it, I wouldn't have favorites. I collect Kato House. Kato House is one I've got a lot of. Pot Race I've got a lot of. There's a few other brands out there like Micro Turbo. I quite like Micro Turbo. There's two that sound similar. There's Micro Turbo, and then there's, what's the other one? The non-licensed one? There's Turbo Micro and Micro Turbo. Anyway,
right.
David's probably got 10 of them.
Yeah. Another one lately, I've bought a few Hobby Japans as well. Actually, I bought a few Hobby Japan, and I really like Hobby Japan as well. I've just sort of discovered Hobby Japan, and I'm really enjoying this stuff.
Yeah,
definitely.
You're getting up on the premium level. What about Mini GT? You talk about a weighty car that rolls well.
Yeah.
Mini GT's pretty good one.
I mean, I've gone for the Kato House. I've got quite a bit of Kato House.
Yeah, that's right.
That's slippery slope right there. There's just a lot of stuff coming out for them. So
it is, yeah, absolutely. I mean, Kato House, some of the scales, I don't enjoy the scales, but at the same point, I know Kato House has said that they're not creating 1/64 scales. They're just creating diecast pieces. So I appreciate Kato House for what it is. I do it does kind of annoy me sometimes if I line them up in a video and I've got a Honda Civic that's, the size of a suit.
Yeah.
Kind of gets to me a little bit at the same time, what Cato House do with their cars and the detail they put in them. You shrink that down to, take 30%, 40% off the size. It's going to be a lot harder to get that detail, and even looking at it, it's going to be a lot harder. So I kind of understand why they do it. But yeah, just Mini GT in general, same thing. I find sometimes their scale can be off. I do like Mini GT. It's just I'm quite a bit more selective in what I'll pick up from them. But that's the same with any diecast brand. I'm very selective on what I'll pick up. So even Pop Race, if I don't like a casting, I won't pick it up as well. Just so happens, probably Pop Race make a few of my favorite castings, which is I'm probably safe to say most of us probably have a Heikasuka in their collection.
Sure.
Which is probably one of my favorites. And obviously going to Japan, probably my favorite pieces in my collection, being at the event and seeing the cars in real life. They had the Heikasuka and the Ken Mary at the event, and the Fat Five racing pieces, they've probably, just because of the sentimental value and how much I like both those cars, they've probably become my favorite pieces in my whole collection. So yeah, but I still do collect the Hot Wheels. I still buy RLCs at the moment. I'm very selective on what I'll buy. Being in Australia, we pay a little bit for postage, and RLC is a tough one at the moment. I like it, but what was it? The Lamborghini, what is it? The Miura that just came out recently. Miura. We were paying $67 for that, plus $30 postage. So you're paying $100 to get that to the door. So I passed on. I really wanted that one, but I suppose out of principle, I just passed on that one just for the, you can buy something else. You can buy, Atomica one, for cheaper and that sort of thing. The Atomica Limited Vintage Neo, which is a brand I want to get more of that I haven't sort of explored, but I sort of like what they do as well. So
yeah, that's pretty cool.
You'll like them. You'll like them.
Or ignition model.
I know I will. Yeah. Ignition model. I feel like, this is another one as well. Ignition model. Are they resin models?
Yeah. I don't know if David, you just bought me one. The 1/64th, is that a resin or
the one that you have is resin?
Okay.
I think they do both actually. I think they do diecast and resin. Their resins are just out of this world.
Those are display pieces. Those are not, ones that you roll down the track or just roll. Those are display pieces, and I think they're really well done.
I completely understand that. I've got this. This is the Inu Ford Escort. I don't know if you guys remember this one when it came out. It doesn't look as good in the camera, but it's an amazing piece. Doesn't roll. It's resin, so it's super lightweight. I love the car. I love what they've done with it, but it's just something about not having the weight. Like, I like to pick the cars up, look at them, and put them in videos, and it's probably something I need to get over. But
just put a piece of lead in the window or something like that and glue it in there. So it just
can't seem to push past the resin factor yet. So
let it go. Let it go, Elsa. You're gonna have to let it go.
Yeah.
But it does look good. It does look amazing sitting there on display. So
yeah, it's good display pieces. I like their larger scale stuff. I've yet to buy it, but I want to buy their 510 wagon. That's I don't know what it is, 1/24th or something like that.
Yeah,
resin.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like $200 to $400. I can't remember, but yeah, it's cool stuff.
Well, I personally, Ben, I fully support you going down the rabbit hole that I did, on to the $40, $50, $60 models now. Once you go, you can't go back to the cheapo stuff in the future. So
it's really difficult.
Yeah. Sorry. RIP your wallet.
Yep. Yeah. I'm well aware of that, and it's taking a hit, and it'll continue to take a hit. So that's fine, and I'm more than happy with that.
I call it investing in your personal happiness.
There you go. Self-care.
Yeah. Yep.
Self-care.
There you go. Self-care.
And when you're lucky enough to be in the position that YouTube offsets it in a way, it definitely makes the decision to pick these higher end pieces up as well. easier.
Sure. Absolutely. All right, Ben. Well, thank you again so much for being on the show with us. For those who somehow don't know how do they connect with you? Where do they find you? What's the best way to locate Boy Racer Ben?
Easy one. Yeah, Boy Racer Ben on. Yeah, I mean, I'm on TikTok. I'm not so much posting there, but Instagram, and probably Instagram is the best place. Especially if people want to message me as well. So I still get messages on Facebook and that sort of thing. Not too active on YouTube as well, just because it is harder to sort of get in touch with people. Instagram if people want to get in touch with me in general. But yeah, I usually post my up-to-date content on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. So whatever your preferred platform is, yeah.
Sure. All right, fantastic. Well, again, thank you, Ben, and thank you, watchers, listeners, patrons, wherever you are, for making it to the end of another episode of Diecast Breakdown. Of course, we want to thank the folks that support the show and make it go. If you want to join their ranks, you can visit diecastbreakdown.com, where you can find links to drivendreams.org, our little project that we're doing. It's not little, it's a huge project. It's awesome. Sorry, Mark. Don't know why I said that. But we are raising 25,000 cars for kids in need all over the world. Doesn't matter where you are, you can participate. And you don't even have to lick a stamp or sign a check. You just get some cars to some local kids and check out drivendreams.org and see how easy it can be. You can also check out our merch store. You can follow us on the various socials, although most of the time you're going to find us right here on YouTube. But we are trying to post more on Instagram because somebody told us that it's the place to be for Diecast. So he might be onto something. This Ben guy, I mean, he's in touch with what the youth want.
The youths.
So, the Utes. Not the Utes. Not the Australian Utes.
No pun intended.
But the New Jersey Utes. So, well, alrighty.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Ben, and thanks for making it to the end of another episode of Diecast Breakdown. As always, we want to thank you for coming along with us for the ride. So until next time, stay fresh, cheese bags.
Thanks for listening to Diecast Breakdown. If you enjoyed today's show, please rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and tell a friend to listen in. Find Diecast Breakdown on your favorite social media platforms or visit diecastmedianetwork.com to learn more about this and our other projects. Diecast Breakdown is a presentation of Flying Valiant and the Diecast Media Network.